City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded November 1st, 2022.
Police and Fire Commission, November 1st, 2022. First thing on the agenda is the roll call. Leanne, please call the roll.
Moore.
Here.
Kirschling.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Ostrowski.
Here.
And Morozek.
Here.
Excellent. Everyone's here and accounted for. Item number 2 is the approval of minutes. You have before you the minutes from last month's meeting. There are
Kirschling make an approval, or make a motion for approval of last month's minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Kirschling. Do we have a second?
Second by Morozek.
Second from Morozek. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 3 is the confirmation of bills, and we will ask Mr. Ostrowski for his review, please.
Mr. President, reviewed the bills. Nothing that stands out except one explanation on the police department's bills. If you look near the bottom, there's a duplicate cleaning and service expense of $1,600. Accidentally, 1 month, a couple months ago, it was thought to have been paid and it wasn't. It was thought to be a duplicate bill, so it wasn't. So now we're catching up, so that's why we were behind. However, reviewing them all too, we're in good shape budget-wise. Once again, I commend the chiefs because based on what we're doing, we should not have a problem with our budget. So I would recommend a motion to approve the bills as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Ostrowski to approve. Do we have a second from anyone?
Second Morozek.
Second by Morozek. Any comments or questions? Comments or questions from the audience? Anyone? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to agenda item number 4, which is the police chief's report. And standing in today, Assistant Chief, please.
Thank you. Well, this month we celebrated a promotion of Lieutenant Mike Long. He'll be leading our night shift. And Sergeant Rob Roser, he'll be moving to another rotational shift. So that was nice. And then we hired our full-time CSO position, and Andrew Hensel got that position. He is our current part-time CSO. He will now be full-time starting on Monday. On the 25th, our new therapy dog was born. So cute little puppy. Gets all kinds of pictures. 3 boys, 3 girls. Not sure what we're gonna get yet, but so that was exciting. And this last weekend, we had the Portage County Drug Take Back, and all of the drugs that we took up to be incinerated countywide was 975 pounds. Lots and lots of drugs this quarter. So that was a lot. But we're glad they're using the program, and it's successful. Moving on to some of our calls of interest. The middle of October, our investigation bureau and our MEG unit worked together with some other agencies in the county, and we utilized our canine officers as well. We did some interdiction work within the city, and it was extremely successful. I believe there were 3 stops. Out of it, we got 1 handgun, over 65 grams of meth, over 13 grams of cocaine, and over 14 grams of THC. And there were 10 charges that resulted out of it. So it was a really, really good night. The other big call for the month was October 20th. We had a call into our to our 911 center stating that there was an active shooter with a number of students shot up at the high school. It was considered to be a swatting call. There were a number of these calls made around the state on that day, which we were aware that they were going around. And although we were aware of it, we still responded as if it were true until we found otherwise. Our officers did a great job responding. They put the school into lockdown and did a sweep of the school, and as I stated, it was a false call. This is probably the third swatting call in Stevens Point this year. So, all right. Mental health related incidents, we had 37 welfare checks this year, or excuse me, this month. 7 of them ended up being chapters. And then looking at our officers in training, Officer Jason Dinger just finished shadow on his field training program. He is now on solo patrol, so that's exciting. And Officer Sam Hessel is in the shadow period right now, and he's on track for solo patrol on November 14th. And Officer Jaden Solis started with us yesterday, so that was exciting. And for right now, we are at full capacity of officers. And then moving on to our school resource officers, they have been busy as well. As you can see, they've had upwards of 90 calls for service this past month, which is busy for the schools. So we're fortunate for that program and to have them in the schools to help out. That's it.
Assistant Chief, is the community aware of the drop box for drugs here at the police department? Is it advertised?
It is advertised, yes, and when, I guess I shouldn't speak for our
But I mean,
advertisement.
people are walking in and bringing stuff.
Yep, and that's where we get them. The majority of them is at our drop box.
Okay.
There's one at the Sheriff's Department and at Plover as well. So the majority is here. We empty it at least one time a week, if not more. And then we have the statewide events throughout the community, like at the Lincoln Center is where the cities is, and then there's some in outlying areas within the county twice a year.
Okay.
And that's when we do that secondary.
It's important to me because I run into a number of seniors and I talk with them and their chest has got, 12-year-old drugs in it and they got cabinets full of it. And, well, we can't flush it down the drain. No, don't do that. We've
Yep.
got a place, go down to the police department. Oh, I can? They only do that once a year. No, it's year round. So
Yep.
I just want to make sure that it's out there.
Sure.
The other thing I'd like to comment to you, I appreciate now getting these reports on the resource officers' work, because I was astounded when I came up with 260 cases in a month between the 3 schools. I mean, that just blew me apart, but I really appreciate learning that, because I don't think people realize, they go, why do we have to have an officer in the school? This pretty well explains it. When you got 90 at one school alone, that's 3 a day. In fact, it's more than that because the school's only in session 5 days a week. So
Right.
thank you for that information.
Yep, absolutely.
Is there any other questions for the Assistant Chief? I'll make a motion to accept the report and place it on file.
Taylor seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? Anyone from the audience? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 5, moving to Chief Moody, discussion with possible action, long-term agreement with the Village of Park Ridge for fire protection. Chief Moody.
So, as many of you may know, we have looked within the fire department at a few different options to how we were going to provide this service to the Village of Park Ridge. The cost was looked at on a per capita level, an equalized value level, or at a blended level. With that, and talking with the comptroller's office and trying to compare what is closest to what the city taxpayers are paying, the blended formula was agreed to go with. We also looked at the 32 commercial building inspections that we have to provide to that jurisdiction with taking that area over and what that cost is. And then again, we looked at a 10% of cost of doing business with an unforeseen future, where those prices are going and what we've seen in our operational budget and as far as what costs have gone up in the last calendar year. Inside this agreement, you will also see that it is a 2.5-year agreement through January 1st of 2023 through May 31st of 2025. The reason being is because at that time, the other two contracts that we are going to be looking at with the Village of Park Ridge are utilities and the EMR service that the Stevens Point Fire Department is providing to that village. So that is why we looked at the length of the contract. We did a 3% increase in 2024, another 3% in 2025, and we had those paid out in quarterly increments to the city back into the department's operational fund. Some other adjustments that you will note in this contract versus the short-term contract is that we now have the 2% dues added into this long-term contract, and that is under number 3, paragraph B. So that'll be noted in there. And again, we are going to continue to provide these services that we're currently providing to the village throughout this time. There was a special meeting that was set up for October 12th last month for the Village of Park Ridge to review this document and to decide if they wanted to go with the City of Stevens Point long-term. And they had voted at the special meeting that they chose to go forward with us, with a few corrections that have been made in the packet or in the current agreement that you see in front of you. Those corrections were made by both legal counsels from the city and village on this October 17th, and everything has been updated at this time.
Was there anything significant in their corrections?
No, the 3 corrections that they had, one was they wanted to acknowledge the current president of the village and or current versus just Steve Menzel. Myself as the chief or current chief, if something were to occur to either one of us in the next 2 years. And then there was a grammatical error with one of the paragraphs that just had to be fixed. Nothing significant.
Okay. City Attorney, you're all right with all of this?
Yeah, I've reviewed everything throughout the whole process, and it all looks good to me.
Thank you.
Chief, is there a timeline anticipated of when, if we go on this contract, of when they would present us to continue, sometime in 2025? Is there a target date? It's not going to be the 30th of May of that, one day to go on the contract.
No, there's going to be a lot of discussion. There's a few things that have to be brought up to speed as well during this contract. We are going to be discussing separately their village ordinances to reflect what our city ordinances are under our fire department. We're also going to be looking at what we're going to do with all of their equipment and working with the village on that. And then we're going to start discussions early on to what all 3 of those next agreements are going to look like in 2025. So we aren't waiting till the last month to get this.
Conceivably, it would be more like we'd start looking at things January 1st of 2025, 5 months ahead or so.
Probably January 1st of 2024, if not sooner.
That's even better news.
So we're going to start working on it earlier rather than later.
That's a mutual agreement. They're open to that too.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions?
So this is the final draft right here. You're looking for our approval?
Correct.
Correct.
And then it'll go to council and
Committees and council.
committees and council later this month.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve this draft as it's presented in front of us. Do I need anything to that motion, do you think?
That should probably do it.
Kirschling, second.
Okay, and we have a second by Mr. Kirschling. Any further questions or comments? Any from out there? Anyone? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 6, discussion possible action to create a new position within the Bureau. Chief Moody.
So as many of you know, we created a new division chief / fire marshal position in 2018. This position was responsible for fire inspections, code enforcement throughout the city, fire investigations, and pub ed were the 3 areas that this division chief was going to oversee. Some of the concerns that we had through and prior to 2018 was having one consistent voice when we were out doing code enforcement and dealing with issues that came up after the initial fire inspections. As the city has grown, we saw the need for that, and we made the adjustment. With that and the creation of the position, though, we have seen the position itself and the expectations of the city grow on that individual and of the Bureau. And so to move forward, we would like to grow that Bureau as well. As an example, in 2019, the position was created in the end of 2018. 2019 was the first year that it was actually up and running for the first full year. We had 1,282 fire inspections for the city. We did 356 follow-up inspections, and with that, we found that some additional inspections that we were only doing annually needed to be done twice a year. Since then, our data has shown that we've increased our initial fire inspections anywhere between 100 to 120 per year. Also having to deal with follow-up inspections, certificate of occupancies, and other things that we are now doing more consistently with the building department. Our initial inspections have gone up to 1,503 inspections to date in just a short period of time. We have also updated our inspection program. We've gone online to a program called Streamline. We have also implemented a new program called Compliancy Engine, and also put a lot of other things online, including our burning permits. The Bureau has also given us the opportunity to create a larger footprint within the community and within our department, allowing us to increase our YouTube hits and also allowing us to expand on our Facebook program. With the call volume continuing to go up in the city of Stevens Point and in Portage County, the required training hours that our online staff are expected to attend on a monthly basis, and with everything else increasing on the expectations, we are looking to create one additional position within the Bureau that the division chief would be responsible for or in charge of. How we planned on funding this is this will be through the operational budget, and it will be with the funds that we have secured with the long-term contract with the Village of Park Ridge. And with your approval or permission, I will be looking to sit down and take the job description and meet with Baker Tilly, our firm, to come up with a grade and pay level, and look at creating the position and moving it forward through the PFC committees and council to hopefully have this position in place the start of the first of the year, if not sooner.
Chief, would this essentially be a deputy fire marshal? Is that what you're looking at?
Correct. Yes, it would be a deputy fire marshal.
This would, so this would help streamline other services provided by taking some of the inspection duty off of everybody else and keeping everything within the Bureau?
Correct.
Okay.
So what we have found is, with those inspections, like I said, a little over 1,200 when the Bureau first started. And prior to that, our line lieutenants and firefighter medics going out and doing these inspections with carbon copied paper, essentially. We have been able to now realize what inspections were what inspectable buildings weren't even being inspected within the city, what additional things need to be taken care of, and trying to keep that one voice or that consistency within the Bureau. We've also, since creating this position, have taken all but 600 inspections off the line. Each lieutenant has been responsible for 10 inspections every month for the first 10 months of the year, hoping to have them all done by the end of October. With the fire marshal or the division chief not being in place this year for a majority of the year, we had to up that to almost 25 per month. And with that, when we have those lieutenants or we have other individuals on the line out doing those inspections, where we're lacking is in training. And we just had ISO in as well, and I'm going to bring that up here in a little bit. We've realized that we said initially we needed 9, and then we went to 12 hours per month. Now we're realizing we need more than that. So we need to take something away from the line to allow them to be community servants, number one, respond to 911 calls, and get their training completed. This would allow for that.
So with this new position, the deputy fire marshal, it's going to take all the inspections off of lieutenants, or where is that kind of
It
sitting?
will not take all the inspections away, because I also feel that there is still a learning curve that needs to be happening with our line staff as far as going out and doing some inspections, especially some of the new construction within the city, seeing how these buildings are actually built, so that when they go at 3 o'clock in the morning to actually fight these fires, they know what they're actually constructed like. So there still will be some inspections done by the line, but a majority will be taken away.
What apparatuses are they using right now for the inspections? I'm assuming they're taking an engine or...
Correct. So depending on staffing levels, but normally our tower is out doing inspections out in Station 2, potentially our engine at Station 1, or they take car 5 out. We're also looking at one of the complaints or one of the issues that came up in addressing some issues at our last officers meeting was having more licenses to be able to have more people out doing inspections. So that is another thing we're looking at as well.
Okay.
Chief, what contingency do you have if the Park Ridge contract ends? How are you going to pay for this position in the future?
So with that, with the long-term contract running out in 2025, I have sat down with the comptroller's office and looked at where we need to go and what we need to look at as far as operationally, can we afford to absorb that into the operational budget. And right now, I don't have an answer for that. There's a lot of, I wish I had the crystal ball, but I don't. So I don't have an answer on that right now.
But you guys are looking into it because there's a possibility that Park Ridge may go away. I'm not
Correct.
saying that it is, but...
Yes. Yeah, and I'm well aware of that with that long-term contract, that it only goes out through 2025.
Okay.
Chief, the one nice thing I like about this proposal is the fact that nobody can see into the future. And with the changing of the guard all the time that happens, especially in the fire department, it's been happening lately. This puts a position in line to step up if something should happen to the main fire marshal, illness, resign or whatever. This guy is right in training. I really like the proposal, and the volume speaks for itself.
So, and that is the plan, that whoever the new deputy fire marshal is, we would be looking to groom that person to eventually take over that position down the road.
Very smart thinking.
Any other questions?
And also to go back and talk about the position long-term. The city, and unfortunately, I'm not sure if Chief Williams is up to speed on this, but I know Chief Kuso is, and he's talked about it before. The city has agreed to put those additional positions on in the past, and we were, in line to receive some of those positions, and that has been approved. The funding has just not been there. So those positions are technically funded out there. I just have to find the funding for it.
Correct. Okay, we need a motion.
Kirschler will make a motion to create the deputy fire marshal position within the Bureau.
Ostrowski will enthusiastically support that with a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions from the audience? Comments or questions from the board?
Should we make this motion contingent upon Park Ridge accepting the long-term contract?
I think that pretty much speaks for itself, because if he doesn't have the funding, he won't be able to make,
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay. Good with that.
I think it'll be all right the way it is.
And they've technically already agreed to it. They voted and agreed
They've
to it
already
already.
voted.
It's our side that now has to go through PFC, council, or sorry, committees and then council. Their side has already agreed to it.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Good, okay. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 7, discussion with possible action to hire or promote a new battalion chief or chiefs. Chief Moody.
So battalion chief, singular, we had the chief's assessments process yesterday for our last open battalion chief's position, and I am recommending that the city of Stevens Point put a conditional offer out to Jared Hoffensperger. It's not Berger, Hoffensperger. It's with a P, not a B.
Can you spell that?
Sure. It'd be a lot easier. Hoffensperger.
Everybody get that? There'll be a test later.
And he is coming to us with past full-time firefighter experience at Green Bay Airport. He's got ARF experience. He is a lieutenant/inspector for his current department and has a background in fire technician experience as well. So it does come with some experience in that career field.
This position's fully funded already?
Yes.
Okay. And
Do we
What
have
else?
a conditional offer, a start date?
No, because once I have the approval today from the PSC, if I get that, a conditional offer will go out after I have a pay set to the position as well, and that'll be under the next bullet point.
we need a motion.
Where is he currently? Is he still at Green Bay, or is he?
No, he left Green Bay Airport due to not having the advancement opportunities. And so he was looking to advance his career. And right now he's serving as a fire technician, working in a bunch of, out of the valley.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I can make a motion, and do you want it specific to Jared, to?
I have to make it specific to
Okay.
the person,
All right.
yes.
Motion to hire Jared Hoffensperger, is that correct? Did I say that right? To our next battalion chief.
Kirschling, second.
Okay. Suitable motion? Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 8, request to hire or promote battalion chiefs at step 3 of the City of Stevens Point pay plan. Chief.
So again, like I have done for other chief officers, What I am looking to do is, with the conditional offer, if he accepts the conditional offer, that we start this battalion chief at step 3 of the city pay plan, and I have the ability to do that under city policy regarding educational experiences and where we are currently at with recruitment and retention within the Stevens Point Fire Department. So my recommendation is that I am going to, with your approval, take this to the subcommittee within the city to get a recommendation when we offer him the conditional offer, it'd be at step 3.
What's your projected timeline on this?
So the conditional offers go out. Timeline, we just ran this whole process for 4 other individuals. We did conditional offers, and now they're actually starting the academy on Monday, November 7th. Usually this process, onboarding process, takes between 4 to 6 weeks. So between having to have them go back and do the medical, the fit, and the psych, and then we working on a start date, it's usually about 4 to 6 weeks out. So
About mid-December, early December, mid-December?
I'm hoping to have this person in-house by mid-December.
Okay, we're looking for a motion.
Motion to accept the chief's request to raise the battalion chief in this condition to step 3 level, pay level.
Okay.
Taylor seconds.
Second by Taylor. Comments, questions, anything from the audience?
Where would this put us? Because we're creating a position, where are we still in total head count?
Nope, so this position won't be a new position. This won't be a created position. So this is filling a current position on the line as a shift commander. So what it would do, though, is it would, with filling this position, we sit 4 short currently on the line, and then all of the management positions within the department would be filled.
Okay,
Much better numbers.
thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Who was that by? Ostrowski and Taylor. Okay, and no further questions. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Chief, you've got your work cut out for you. Agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action, acceptance of 3 new Tempus LS monitors from an anonymous donor worth approximately $25,000. Please explain what they are and then tell us the story.
Well, I'm going to keep it kind of brief. And again, this is coming from an anonymous donor and would like to remain that way. But after having many discussions and seeing what our services have to offer, this individual would like to purchase 3 new Tempus LS monitors for the department for approximately $25,000. These monitors would be placed on Engine 1, Tower 2, and Car 4. These monitors have the capabilities of doing 3-lead EKGs and recognition. They have the abilities to provide electric therapy to an individual if needed. And this would be the last, per se, checkbox needed for our fire apparatuses to be considered ALS response paramedic apparatuses. So with this capability, we will be able to do, with a fire apparatus responding, everything that ambulance can do except transport. And we are going to showcase that. I think it's important that the community realize the capabilities of the men and women of the Stevens Point Fire Department, whether they're on a fire apparatus or on a med unit. We are going to put paramedic, right on the side of our apparatuses, create that part of the billboard, because it's important that they realize what type of service now we're going to be able to provide out there. So that takes it to the next step, and it's that last checkbox that we really need.
Apologize, Chief. The donor did want to recognize.
Chief,
the-
Assistant Chief, can you come up to the microphone, please?
Recognize the three. That was also the critique.
Okay, so I apologize. The other part was he did want to recognize the three members that did treat him, and they were Lieutenant Westfall, and then Alex Klanowski, and John Clements.
Very good.
So now, in other words, these three firefighting apparatuses will be able to supply service that really you had to wait for an ambulance to be present. So if the truck can do, not only fight the fire or respond to the call, but can actually treat the patient at a higher level.
Correct. We could treat the patients to certain capabilities with our fire apparatuses. Again, this was just our last checkbox to be able to perform all of those capabilities.
So these are heart monitors then?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to accept the 3 new Tempest LS monitors from the anonymous donor.
I would second that very strongly.
Very good. Any further questions? Anything from the audience? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Very good, and thank you very much.
Thank the donor.
That's the donor who I'm thanking. Absolutely. Agenda item number 10, hearing of grievance filed by the Stevens Point firefighters IAFF Local 484 in August of 2022. We have before us a grievance. You should have the information before. They're grieving policy 1049. We are here to hear that. Are we going to start with the union members?
I think perhaps we should start with getting an arrangement of microphones that people can use. I think we have one more table like this, and if we can sneak 2 of those out, that's probably going to be a good idea.
You're going to have to ask our technician back there what you can do. I don't know how long cords they've got that they can move. I'm sorry?
Does Dana have to stay? Otherwise, I can scoot down too, and they
Yeah,
can
we
sit
can
here.
bring them up
Just
here if
kind
we
of.
Go ahead, yeah, just
want
come on
that?
down.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
We're just going to scoot.
You guys want to
We'll
come up
just
here?
move these guys over. Then you guys can go over here, or somebody can. And their attorney is going to be on the telephone.
Coming over.
Okay, the phones.
You guys need here. I can, I'm sorry. Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure yet. But microphones would be good so everybody can hear you, so we're going to have to get you somewhere.
Yeah, if you're going to have to
I'll
speak
just,
to us.
I want you to take the phone. I'll move over.
We need one more spot to come over.
Of course, we do have the podium as well.
Yeah. Chief, do you want to go over by the attorney?
Sure.
And I think if you guys come over here to the microphone, over on this side. Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
I guess I'm moving.
Yeah, just so you can confer with the city attorney if needed. You guys can move down this way.
Okay, go back.
Oh, now you're curving me back. Thanks a lot.
This might be
Well, I
yours.
didn't do it. You'll be fine.
Thanks.
Sarah, you can stay right where you are.
Want me to call him?
Yeah, you might as well give it a whirl, see if we can get him on the line. Attorney Beveridge, we're going to try and call their attorney so we can get him on the line. You guys got enough room down there?
Plenty.
Excellent. Comfortable? These chairs are
Stretch the
horrible.
table.
These chairs are just fine.
No, they're not.
Hello, this is Sean.
Hello, Sean. This is the Police and Fire Commission from Stevens Point. We are just getting everything arranged to start the hearing. And welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the time, and thank you for being accommodating to let me participate via phone.
We turned up as much as it goes. Okay. All right. Attorney Beveridge, if you could kind of help us out here. I have not done one of these where I've been in charge, so if you could kind of orchestrate or tell us what steps we should be taking?
Sure. So obviously, the board is going to need to hear a characterization of what the grievance is and what it's based on and the arguments that are being made. And I certainly do not want to put words in the mouth of either the union or their attorney. So I think Attorney Lees, I think certainly if you'd like to lead off with your presentation of the grievance, I think that might be the best way to proceed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I was having a little trouble hearing you, but I think I was able to make out what you were saying. And so this is the third step of the grievance that was filed by the union, and it has to do with really a limitation on the hours worked that from the union's perspective has been unilaterally implemented by the chief. So that said, by way of background, I believe that the chief and the department has taken the position that because of a statute, which is Wisconsin Statute Section 213.13, it indicates that there should be one full rest day of 24 consecutive hours during each 96 hours. So essentially, it kind of puts a cap on the consecutive hours worked at 72 because it calls for that 24-hour rest period within that span. So this statute has been on the books for quite a while. I believe the most recent legislative change was in about 1997 when there was just some semantics that changed, like, for example, spelling out the word to as opposed to having the number there or vice versa. So long story short, this statute has been on the books for quite a while. I think the department has taken a look at this statute and says, hey, I think we need to implement this because previously it had not been implemented in the department. And so the statute says what it says. It does contain that language referencing one full rest day of 24 consecutive hours during each 96 hours. It also says that this shall not apply to cities having the 2-platoon or double shift. And so I have a different perspective than I think the city's attorney has with regards to how this statute should be implemented. But I do want to say that this, long story short, the city is trying to change the hours and working conditions of the union, and that if they want to do that, notwithstanding no matter where they think the genesis of the change comes from, they do need to bargain over that change. From my perspective, that's just a standard labor practice. And so if the department's saying, hey, we haven't been in compliance with this statute, that's really, to be frank, that's not the union's fault, and the union and the department can't just say, hey, we're changing the way that we're conducting hours worked without bargaining over those changes, or at a minimum the impact of those changes. So from just a labor perspective, that's really the main issue. I also do want to state that with regards to whether or not it's even appropriate to follow this statute, or I should say the city's interpretation of the statute. So the statute doesn't apply to cities having the 2-platoon or double shift. I think that's kind of some archaic language. I don't think many departments have this 2-platoon set up. But I think from like a legislative perspective, the purpose is to make sure people aren't overworked and to have some rest, during the work week. So Stephen's point does not have the 2-platoon. It has a 3-platoon. And so if we're looking at for the purposes of legislative intent, like, hey, why is this maxed hours in there? Well, 3 platoons for purposes of breaking up the work week is better than 2. And so the rationale between having this limit and having the limit not apply to a 2-platoon shift, I think the argument's even stronger for a 3-platoon shift, in that, there's an inherent carve-out for departments that aren't just solely operating on a one-shift capacity, essentially. So just to briefly recap, I think there's 2 separate issues. One, the union disagrees with the city's interpretation of the statute and how it should be applied. And second, if the department feels compelled to move forward with this limiting hours, that's clearly impacting the wages, hours, and working conditions of the bargaining unit. And so, under our labor law in Wisconsin, those do need to be bargained over. And so I did have a conversation with Attorney Beveridge, and I have said, if this department wants to move forward with this, I would be happy to set up a time to either come up or participate via Zoom and engage in some bargaining. I understand that the department's perspective is, hey, the statute says what it says, we need to do this. Again, I have a different interpretation of the statute, and this is not a situation in which the law has changed and now everyone throughout the state is getting into uniformity with how we're organizing the work schedule. The statute has been on the books for a very long time. The department practice has been what it has been, which is, allegedly not in compliance with the statute. Again, none of that is the union's fault, frankly. And so if the department is going to make changes to the hours and working conditions, at a minimum, those changes need to be bargained over. And that said, I can have further discussion with Attorney Beveridge, either in this setting or another, as to why I don't agree with their interpretation of the statute. And so that is, in a nutshell, where we're coming from, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or discuss further if needed.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts on this. Attorney Beveridge, I guess we're ready to hear your side now.
Sure, and just to start off, I'm just going to hand out some copies of the statute in question, just so everybody can actually see it.
Do you want to sit here so you're closer to this phone?
Or I can move. Do you want me to move?
That way he can hear you.
Oh, it's here?
Yeah, it's picking up here.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you.
Okay, Sean, can you hear me a lot more clearly now?
I can, yes, thank you.
All right, good. So I've handed out the statute. There's actually two statutes there. The other one is classes of cities. As you can see in the one on the first page there, it does make reference to how these rules differ based upon class of cities. And the other one just shows that Stevens Point is what's considered a third-class city, which is, it puts us in that 1B category there. So just in terms of the history of this, it's actually a very kind of a recent discussion that's been happening, and it occurred during bargaining here as we were leading up to the most recent contract. The concept of some sort of limitation on consecutive hours worked was discussed. At that time, myself and FD management just were not aware of this particular statute. We'd gone through some discussions on implementing a limit on hours. Ultimately, that was taken off the table. We just weren't able to find any sort of consensus on that. And it was taken off the table, and then it was later discovered that this statute existed. Now, in speaking with Chief Moody, there had, independent of any sort of actual rules being implemented, there had been a discussion between him and the 44 just to try to get a grip on some of the extended amounts of days in a row that people were working. There were some instances of somebody working 9 or even 10 days straight as a result of shift changes. And obviously, Chief Moody here, if I mischaracterize any of that, jump in here by all means. And the directive was just, let's try to get this brought down to earth. We've got studies and data that show that as the consecutive hours of work increases, the incidence of errors or accidents tends to go up, as you might expect. So upon discovering this statute, it had some discussions with the chief, and my interpretation of it was, we are a third-class city. This rule applies to us. It's clear, it's concise, it's not ambiguous. And we created a policy that mirrors the statute to a T. It's word for word the same as the statute. Now, with regards to the comments from Attorney Lees, he and I did have a discussion about this morning, and in short, I don't believe the age of the statute is ultimately something that's relevant to its enforceability. Frankly, actually, having looked at plenty of statutes, being created in 1983 and amended in 1997 is not exactly ancient history. But also just the underlying public policy, to try to create not just a benefit to working conditions of having people get some rest, but also just the benefit in terms of trying best practices to avoid errors, to avoid accidents or anything like that. Now, Attorney Lees had mentioned to me earlier, and he kind of touched upon this briefly in his comments to the commission, the idea of past practice. And of course, past practice is a phrase that members of the commission here have heard before. The idea there is that a way of doing things with regards to items covered in the contract or wages, hours, conditions of employment can be enforceable even if it's not written out in the contract, so long as it has been an agreement between management and the union to do things that way. And that agreement doesn't even necessarily have to be totally explicit. It can be sort of an implied mutual agreement, is the phrase you sometimes see. However, I think that here, even if you're going to try to make the argument that this is a past practice of not having a cap on consecutive hours, I think to any extent that there was a mutual understanding there, that understanding was upset by the discovery of this statute. Now, for better or worse, certainly you can say that it's not the fault of the union that this wasn't seen earlier. Ultimately, I don't think there's any suggestion here that anybody's at fault or anything like that. I mean, it's an enactment of the state of Wisconsin, and we're bound by it no less than we would be if it was something related to the use of taxpayer money or the certification for various equipment, anything like that. So I think the idea of the mutuality just fails here with regards to the past practice. But even more importantly, when it comes to past practices, there's this concept that if you have a provision in a contract that is plain and unambiguous, the words are not subject to differing interpretations, you can't overcome plain and unambiguous contract language via a past practice. Like the parties can't simply just decide to ignore it. There's even been some court decisions that have said, we're going to enforce the plain language of the contract even when the arbitrator believed that on the basis of equity, the past practice should govern. Now that's talking about contract provisions. Contract provisions are certainly a little bit squishier and less binding than a state law. And I think that's, ultimately this is a very simple matter. We are trying to be in compliance with state statute. And just to drive home the importance of that, if, suppose that, God forbid, there's some type of error or accident that leads to, harm to either an employee or a member of the public, a patient, and it's discovered that the person who was, the employee who was involved in that or multiple employees were working in excess of what the statute says they are allowed to work for consecutive hours. That's going to be a very difficult situation to address because there could be very strong arguments that there's liability just as a matter of law there on account of having been in violation of this very clear and unambiguous standard. So I certainly am all ears, and I've said this to Attorney Lees previously, that I'm all ears for any very concrete legal explanation for how or why we need to bargain a statute. And we don't have our heels dug in on these actual numbers and everything, but it jumps off the page in a very clear manner. And we don't see any way that we can not enforce it. And just last little point in that regard, we've heard Attorney Lees say, well, we're just asking that you sit down and bargain it, just asking that you sit down and bargain it. Well, if we go into a bargaining session on the management side trying to achieve compliance with state law, what's our walk away from the table point? How can you negotiate the compliance with state law? It's essentially, you have to agree with us on something. So it sort of defies the game theory of negotiation if one side absolutely is unable to walk away from the table because they feel the demands aren't reasonable. So I think even if the union's request that this be required to be bargained is granted, I think that it doesn't function in terms of the basic idea underlying the concept of negotiation. Thank you.
Okay, we have heard from both sides. Everyone understands what the discussion is about here.
Do you guys want to say anything?
Attorney Lease has pretty much said what we need to say right now at this point.
The next step we're going to go through from here, I guess, would be a discussion with the board, figure out what everybody's standing is.
And certainly, if you have any questions for either myself, Attorney Lees, or members of either management or the union, I think this would be a good time for them.
Okay.
Can I have just one brief chance, like 30 seconds to respond to Attorney Beveridge?
Sure.
Yeah, and so I just want to point out, I do want to reiterate, I believe I touched upon this in my opening statement. So that section, there is a carve-out for cities having the 2 platoon or double shift. And so I think at a minimum that carve-out creates ambiguity as to this statute, the applicability of the statute. Again, for purposes of breaking up the work week, 3 platoons is better than 2, essentially. And so I think the intent was, again, to make sure that there's adequate staffing and a reasonable schedule. And I think the statute's saying, hey, if you guys have, it says 2 platoon, but I think a reasonable interpretation is if you have more than 1 platoon and more than 1 shift, people are going to get adequate rest. And so I would just want to reiterate that. I think that's something to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Beveridge, do you have anything to respond to that at this time?
Just very briefly, I think independent of the 2 platoon double shift, the 3 platoon system like we currently have, ultimately the purpose here is that you get 1 full day of rest every 96 hours. So independent of what your actual structure is, that's what it's seeking to prevent. And we've got plenty of instances that have occurred where people have worked in our department far in excess of that limit. So I think the actual harm that's sought to be prevented here is occurring with our status quo.
Okay. Union, do you guys have anything to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. Chief, do you have anything to add?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so everyone's had their chance to speak and all of that. I'm kind of unclear on where we need to go next. Find a resolution. We have to respond to the union according to the here it is in the massive stacks of paper. Under step 3, it says if the grievance is not settled at the second step, it may be presented to the Police and Fire Commission in writing within 5 business days. After hearing from the chief, the meeting to discuss the grievance shall be held at a mutually agreeable time, which is going on now. Following this meeting, the Police and Fire Commission shall respond within 10 business days in writing. So we're going to have a discussion about this and figure out what our response is going to be. Do we want to do that here in the public right now in this meeting, or shall we excuse everyone and do it? Or I'm not clear on how we resolve this at this point.
Now, certainly, just to clarify for the record, I'm obviously not here in capacity as counsel to the PFC today. on this item. And in the past, the PFC has relied on outside counsel to provide those services. I certainly think that there's an opportunity for that to occur. And should the PFC determine that they wish to work with outside counsel to review what's been presented and then create a decision in consultation with outside counsel, that could be appropriate.
Okay, I think that we may do that at this time. I don't think we're ready to make a decision. I appreciate everyone being here and bringing us the information. We're going to give it serious consideration and take the steps that we need to get you a resolution from here.
Sounds good. President Moore, just for
Yes.
point of order, 10 business days from today I have is November 15th. I'd just like to make sure we have those dates and we're all
Everybody agree to that?
I just counted out on the calendar.
Okay.
I don't believe there's any holidays between now and the 15th, so excluding the weekends.
Only my birthday, so that one won't count.
Well, I guess it's 16th now, huh?
That one won't count. That's
I don't know, I guess Veterans Day, I don't know if we include that or not.
The one comment I'd make would be that just on the chance that outside counsel is not able to fill that role in that time frame, that the PFC, I certainly, as counsel for the city, don't have any opposition to the PFC communicating that to the parties in writing and having a modest extension of that period of time.
Okay.
I have a quick question. I don't know who to ask it, and can we ask questions right now?
Go for it.
So I'm looking at this 2 platoon or double shift, and I'm interpreting that. So I'm breaking that down to, if there's a city with 1 platoon, wouldn't that work 24/7? Wouldn't they be working 24/7? So the way I read this number 3 is it would be 2 platoons or double shift per shift, meaning simultaneously. So, and the reason I say that is because if I go down to 1 platoon, you would be working 24/7. So I can only interpret this number 3 as 2 platoons or double shift per shift. Am I reading that right?
Okay, hold on a second. Just before we get too deep into this, let's resolve the 15-day issue first.
10
before
day.
we get
10 day,
the-
November 15th.
Excuse me, yes.
Yep, no, that's fine.
Okay, so is everybody in agreement that November 15th, as long as we can find an attorney to talk to in enough time?
Yeah, as long as we're in contact and open and honest about that.
Okay.
I personally don't have
That's-
any problem with that. Attorney Lees, do you have any problem with that?
No.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, then 15th with,
Perfect, thank you.
that's what we're going to shoot for and try and get you a response by then.
Appreciate it.
As far as, Joe, your question goes, I think that we should save that for our discussion with legal counsel.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else that anybody has to add to this conversation right now? And if there's not, we are going to move on to the next agenda item. Mr. Lee?
No, thank you for your time, and thank you again for being accommodating to me appearing via phone.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Union members, thank you for your attendance today. City Attorney. And Chief, agenda item number 10 is your favorite and mine, the Fire Chief's report. Number 11, excuse me.
All right, just gotta throw some stuff. All right. Under the chief's report, just wanted to point out, I know I had brought up earlier that ISO had visited the department for a review of the department. We should be hearing back from them within the next 4 to 6 months where we stand. I would like to point out that prior to taking over this position, and Chief Zavara working as the new Assistant Chief of Fire Department Operations, we were led to believe that we were closer to an ISO 1 than what we actually were. We were about 3 points away from an ISO 1. What that means is we have to have a 90 points or more to be considered an ISO 1 within the fire service. We're about 3 points short as of right now when we had our last review. With that being said, we have corrected a lot of things within our department since the last time they were here. I don't know if we're going to actually make an ISO 1 or not when it comes back. If we do come back as an ISO 1, we will go under a very intensive audit to actually prove all the data that we provided them. If not, we will be looking at what it'll take to actually become an ISO 1 and asking them to come back in the next 2 to 3 years to get that accomplished. Two of the big things that we found out where we're going to gain some significant points and where we think we can truly be there the next time they come is with our training facility. And having the new facility on the books to be built in 2024 and then providing that training down at the site, that is a huge aspect to ISO, having an actual department training facility and doing so many hours of training there a month. The other big thing that we are looking at for ISO is the continued training record updates, but then also the training hours we need per month, like I talked about earlier, with the reason why we need this additional position in the Bureau. Initially, we thought we needed 9 hours of training a month. And that's not the case. We actually need additional hours, and EMS hours unfortunately don't count towards ISO. So we are looking to revamp how we do training on a day-to-day basis, and one of those things are with that new position, allowing there to be more time during the day for our members on the line to train. As you all know, we just went through a Chiefs Assessment Center for the last battalion chief's position. We did have a water rescue on the Wisconsin River due to a capsized boat and some duck hunters that were unable to grab their life jackets before the boat capsized. They did have the right type of equipment on, and it was within regards to the weather, but by the time we got to them, they were starting to lose their grip. One had already fallen into the water, and it was moments before somebody went under. So our medics and our rescuers did a significant job being able to, when they arrived on scene, commandeering a boat from the boat launch from some other hunters, getting out there, getting those people in the boat, and getting them back to shore before hypothermia set in. So they did an excellent job. Also under the report, again, talking about training, members continue to do training, but like we said, after the recent visit from ISO, we need to increase our hours to even more hours trained within a month. And then our public activities, as you can see, lots of public activities last month. It was Fire Prevention Month. We got out there, saw all the kids of all ages. And I just want to thank all the men and women of the Stevens Point Fire Department for what they do and providing that service and that public education to our kids. And it's not just our kids, it's to the community at large, community members, because we have things set up for public education through a certain age within the schools, but then we also offer other things to high schoolers, to college kids, to adults to see fit. So that's all important. We had a member, firefighter paramedic Ronsky. He actually attended the CVTC job fair over in Eau Claire, and again, one of the big things we talk about is recruitment, retention, and the ability to get out there and get new members into the City of Stevens Point Fire Department. We understand that we're short-staffed Obviously, that question was brought up again, every time I fill a position here, how many are we still short? We talk about mandations at the firehouse and people being mandated. We talk about the mental health and the wellness of the employees and making sure they have their time off as well. So all those things are important, and that plays into members of our department going out there and try to, get additional people in the door here for us. Other than that, the Hope Kits, did you want to touch on the Hope Kits? Yeah, I think that's important because, we've only had them for a short period of time. We had a PSA go out on them and they were gone instantly and we needed more. So I think we need to touch on it.
So the Hope Kit is in coalition with the Portage County Health Department. They received a grant from the state of Wisconsin for Narcan. And so what we did with Dr. Clark and the local services is we got together and we said, well, how can we leave behind Narcan to people who might need it or families that might need it, knowing that addiction isn't just a one prism type of problem, is that it affects entire families, it affects social, economic, all sorts of different ones, whether you're wealthy or poor. And again, we want to make sure that people have the ability to save lives. And so with that, Portage County, Vanessa came to me and said, hey, we got with this Narcan that we can leave out for the public. Now, the state law, the statutes all say that this is perfectly legal and it's all good. And so we went to the state and said, hey, can we do this, leave behind? We got the names out in Eau Claire. They're doing it fairly regularly. They call it Hope Kits. On the east side of the state, they're utilizing it also. So what we did was we took their protocols and we kind of figured out how to do that, and we put it together, and the state approved the protocol for Leave Behind Narcan. We've wrapped it up in what we call a Hope Kit because we just didn't want to leave a box of Narcan at somebody's house, right? We just didn't want to say, well, all right, here you go. So the protocol is written in a way that gives the medics the ability to utilize what we consider their best attribute, their brains. So when they show up to a scene, whether it's an overdose or the scene seems to have some drug-related overtones, they have the ability to reach out to the family members or the person and ask them if they would like a Hope Kit. Now, it's not they don't have to take it if they don't want to, but they can offer it. In that Hope Kit comes one spray of Narcan, which is the same type of Narcan that law enforcement carries. It's 4 milligrams in one squirt. They get a box of it, which contains 2 of them, which would be a total of 8 milligrams of Narcan nasally. The kit also provides a direction, very, very simple business card directions so that the people can follow it. It also has information regarding addiction. It has information regarding mental health and other information that they can contact out to people, QR codes, all sorts of things, so that they have the ability to start the journey if they choose to. It also comes with fentanyl test kits. And so with that Hope Kit, we just hand it to them, and that's the end of it. We ask them to put it in the report so that we can make sure that we know how many have gone out there, and that's the end of it. Everything else is anonymous. And if the person chooses not to utilize it or doesn't want the Hope Kit, that is fine too. And like we've said, we can't fix the problem, but we can make sure more people don't die because of it. Right? Addiction is something that we can't, that I can't solve, but I can make sure that people don't die needlessly. And
Joe, how long are those Narcan kits good for?
So the Narcan is good to 2025, and Portage County Health has agreed to supply this with us as long as the grant is still going. So we'll be able to utilize this as much as we can. Any other questions?
So
Sure.
if the individuals, and I saw that out on the, I think it was the Facebook.
Yes.
I saw that advertised with the Stevens Point Fire Department. And with the Narcan, so individuals picked it up, okay? So let's say it is drug use, somebody's, in the home. That call that goes to 911, and then we have the paramedics responding. If someone volunteers to say, hey, I've administered them, Narcan through the Hope Kit, is that something that we're going to track to see, is there any
That is a great question. So at the end of the day, we do track when Narcan's given pre-hospital. So if law enforcement gives it, they just had a successful overdose just over the holiday weekend, or a save, the law enforcement did. That is documented in their patient care reports. As far as, so if somebody had, and in the past, if you've had your own personal Narcan, and we've had that happen also, and they've administered, that is also documented in there. Right now, what they're asking us to track is if we could get an age, a sex, and a zip code of where we left it at this point. We're not going to know 100% if that kit was utilized because they may not call 911. But I would love to be able to do that, and I do think it would give us an eyes wide open type of look at our community as a whole of where we're at and how it's doing.
And can you explain a little bit more on the fentanyl, the strips? Because it was advertised too, where I saw it was the candy and what are your kids?
So what they've seen recently, and law enforcement would be better to be able to explain what they're seeing on a regular basis of the fentanyl. But as of right now, what they're noticing is fentanyl is coming in multicolors. So it's no longer just a white pill, it's showing up in colors that can be construed as for a child. The big scare over Halloween was there was the thought process that kids may accidentally ingest something that they're not supposed to because Halloween is synonymous with candy. The fentanyl test strips tells you if what is in that pill, or if it's heroin, or if it's something else. If it's laced with fentanyl, it will change a color and it will tell you that.
And it's just by placing that next to the...
You add the water to it.
Okay.
It's got a water kit, you add water to it. It's like, I guess the easiest way to say is if you have a hot tub or a swimming pool, it's like that litmus test where you just stick it in there, and if it changes a color, you know it has fentanyl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then lastly, the only other thing I want to put out there is I guess I'm going to speak on behalf of Chief Cuso and Chief Williams, since they're not in the room right now, and the management staff over at the fire department. I just want to thank all the men and women of the fire department and the PD for a very successful Fall Citizens Academy this year. I'm looking at some alders that have experienced it and gone through the process, and I think it's really important for people to understand what we do within the fire, EMS, and law enforcement communities. And graduation is going to be coming up November 11th. And so that's right around the corner. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for all the people that put the time and effort into that program. So it's been a very successful program for everyone. And with that, any questions?
Chief, a couple of things for you. First of all, commendation to you guys on going to the high schools with career fair. I think we need to do more of that. We haven't done it we wait till they're graduating college, and this is terrific. The other thing, my question is for you on the ISO, do they tell you what training categories that we need to improve on?
Yes.
Do they give you a guide?
Yep, when everything comes back, we'll get a detailed document showing where we were successful or very strong and where potentially we were weak and where we need to work on things in order to accomplish that ISO of 1.
And who determines when ISO comes? They do, or can we request them, or?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So they have to come. Usually within that 5-year. They don't like to go outside that 5-year window. But after this review, if we feel we can obtain an ISO 1 with some corrections within the next calendar year or two, the chief can recommend or request that ISO come back and have an audit done.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't that time for homeowners insurance rates too?
Correct.
Denise, can you speak up a little bit, please?
I'm sorry. My question was, I said the ISO rating ties into the insurance, basically the rates that the homeowners, it's a positive effect for the community.
Right, and it's not just homeowners, it's businesses,
yes.
It's everyone within the community.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the report, place it on file.
Taylor seconds.
We have a second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.